What's up? It's Billy Briz, aka at Getting Bills, with my main man, DFS by the numbers, Brady, PSR Fantasy Live preview for Week 2 DraftKings and Fanduel. Brady, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Looking forward to getting right back into it. I feel like we learned a lot after week one. We learned that James Robinson cannot be trusted. We learned a lot of other things as well. So looking forward to getting right back into it and making some money for week two.
I'm actually shocked to even see that you even came into work, as one would say, today, because I thought you'd be in a yacht $1 million richer after hitting that 41-1 prop on Thursday night.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Like I was literally like messing around. Like I put $5 on Van Jefferson to get the first touchdown of the game at 41-1. And then I also put $5 on Demir Bird to get the first touchdown at like 61-1. And then I see that Van Jefferson scores. I was like, what? Like I was shocked. But yeah, that was awesome. Wish I put a little bit more on it, but really could not complain. That really that made my week right there.
Dude, you got to remember, there's no UFC last week. So, $5 on an NFL anytime touchdown prop and it hits. That's the way you get the good mojo and good vibes started for this week. How'd you do in cash games on FanDuel and DraftKings? Or I should just say DraftKings. I don't think you really play FanDuel like that.
Yeah, I think I did one lineup on FanDuel because they gave me like a free lineup. I don't think it did great. It was actually Showdown. So in terms of cash, did really well. I kind of wish I did more cash this week. Tournaments did not go so great. Too much James Robinson, too much Pitts. I ended up going with like pretty much every single lineup I ran with had Pitts, and I think he'll bounce back this week. He had 8 targets. It just, man, the Falcons looked horrible. Matt Ryan looked horrible. I thought even like garbage time, like they couldn't even get anything going the whole game. But yeah, cash went good for me. Quarterback, it was between Murray or Hurts all week. I think Murray scored around 34. Hurts scored around 28, so they both did good. Had Mixon in cash, CMC in cash. I think Mixon and CMC were actually 1 and 2 in terms of scoring. So yeah, not too much complaints for me in terms of betting. Betting is where I made a ton of money this week. You mentioned the 41-1 prop. I killed the Thursday night, the Sunday night, and the Monday night games in terms of betting as well. So overall, good week one, and I'm so looking forward to getting right back into it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I can't really say the same when it comes to the betting. I had a Seahawks -3, but then I got mushed by the Packers +3. And then some stupid props like Brandon Ayuk not being on the field and BetMGM sucking me in. But overall, pretty good week when it comes to the cash games. Cash games were pretty easy this week. A lot of people had Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts. And I felt like by Friday, it was kind of like when we did the show on Wednesday, we were talking about Jalen Hurts, just point per dollar wise. And then once it got to like Friday and we got clearer ownership numbers, felt like that was a clear route to go. But I also got burnt by Kyle Pitts too. Really shocked that Hayden Hurst played as much as he did. Showdown injuries weren't really too bad either. A little bit pissed off that Gronkowski was $1 million piece that you needed. But, as we move on to this Thursday, I feel like DraftKings is sucking us in with a Giants and Washington football $1 million prize pool. So you're going to have to play it if you're a DFS grinder.
I can't believe this Thursday game, man. Like what? Like who cares? But yeah, we're gonna play it. We're gonna try to win some money. But yeah, the Washington going against the Giants, What a game. What a game. Game of the year, potentially.
Oh, man. But let's get right into this week 2 DFS slate. It started off at the quarterback position. In the high tier, who are you looking at to start off your lineups with?
Okay, so the most expensive guy on the slate is going to be Kyler Murray, and I think there's a ton of value at quarterback in terms of, guys in the 6,500 to 7,000 range. If I was to pay up at quarterback, it's going to be Kyler Murray. I love the matchup here. I love the rushing yard upside that he brings. He only had 5 rushing attempts last week with 20 yards and a touchdown, but I still think he can go out there and get a ton of rushing yards. I love the matchup going against Minnesota. The Bengals looked really good against Minnesota last week. And then it is a 50.5 point total, which is one of the best on the slate. Yeah, I like Kyler Murray. I like his stacking options. DeAndre Hopkins being an elite stacking option. Randall Moore, who performed pretty well last week as well. So if I was to pay up at quarterback and, kind of like last week, it was between Hurts and it was between Murray in terms of cash games. I think this week it is between Murray and one other guy. I think Murray, you can never go wrong with him in cash. I like the floor. I like the ceiling for him. And I think he's in a pretty good spot here.
Yeah, man. I actually think Murray will make my player pool, but more of a GPP guy. Like you said, their quarterbacks are kind of – there's a lot of value on this slate this week at the quarterback position. I feel like that's the most valuable position. I don't know how much I really want to pay up because, DeAndre Hopkins might be the best wide receiver in the league if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to play anymore. But quarterback, I think I want to pay up for the most. One of the things I took away from week one, talking about Kyler Murray, was how bad that Titans pass defense was. Mike Vrabel even called out Julio Jones today in the press conference. I don't know how much that will bode well, but Russell Wilson at $7,500 seems like a good GPP option. I don't know if I'm going to get to him in cash games, but stacking options, you know who they are. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. I leaned a little bit more to DK Metcalf. Also, Gerald Everett also as well. He was actually used a little bit more than I thought he would be. But love me some Russell Wilson this week. The other quarterback I was looking at was Josh Allen, man. I think I'm going to go back to the well with Josh Allen in the cash games this week. $7,200 on DraftKings, and then his FanDuel price tag is $8,100. With him being so popular last week, I think a lot of people are going to hop off the bandwagon. But if you look at Josh Allen's splits last year against the Miami Dolphins, and they look pretty good, man. 20 points, 20 DK points, and 32 in the other one. I think he has the safest floor for cash games, and you don't really have to stack him too much. Going into the mid-range, though, Brady, who are you looking at?
Yeah, so there's like a ton of players that stick out in like the 6,500 to 7,000 that I mentioned. And the guy that I like quite a bit is going to be Dak Prescott. And this game in general is something that I want to target. So it has the highest total on the slate at 55 points. And Dallas is going to be 3.5 underdogs in this game, which I do like that as well. But with Dak Prescott, you get really solid stacking options. Cooper, Lamb, and Wilson, who's 3,100 on DraftKings. Michael Gallup is going to be out for the next several weeks. So I think that makes Wilson, especially at 3,100, a phenomenal option. And something I emphasized in terms of a showdown, and in terms of, I had a bet on Prescott over like 39.5 passing attempts on Thursday night. And he literally had like 38 at halftime. And what Dak does is he throws the ball a ton. In his 5 healthy games last year, I think he threw the ball on average like 50.5 times per game. So we know we're going to get a ton of passing attempts from Dak, a ton of volume. I love the matchup against the Chargers. I love this game in general. And like I said, tons of great stacking options that are very cheap. I think Cooper, Lamb are very, very cheap. I think they have a ton of upside. And then Wilson is a great value play as well. So like I said, between Murray and Dak for me in cash, there's a good chance I might go Dak in cash just because of the huge price savings. I think this is way too cheap for Dak here. And even like the Dallas team in general, I think they're all way too cheap. So Dallas is a team that I'm going to be very high on this week and the game in general.
Yeah, I definitely feel you, Brady. I have a lot of the same sentiments. A little bit closer in pricing from 6,800 to 6,700 on DK, but the price tag between Dak Prescott and Herbert's a little bit more on FanDuel. I think Justin Herbert's a better FanDuel play than DraftKings play, but I think we're going to stay in the same exact game. Like you said, all the same exact points. Maybe even Justin Herbert even has an easier matchup than Dak Prescott in this one. And you have Keenan Allen on the other side too. Makes it pretty easy to stack. I think this is the game of the games for this week. I think it's going to be the most popular game on the slate. $6,700 for Herbert and $7,600 on FanDuel is way too cheap. I love me some Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott. Just about the same this week, man. I think it really comes down to if you want to play Dak and run it back with Eckler as a running back, or if you want to play Herbert and get a low-owned Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep, Herbert is another guy that I definitely like as well. That game in general, I think Herbert's great. You can stack him up with guys like Allen, even Eckler, who had actually 0 targets last week, but I do expect that to change this week. Another guy in that same range that sticks out to me is going to be Tom Brady. I can't believe this guy. He's like 44 years old, and he looked phenomenal against Dallas. Of course, I was against Dallas, but another great matchup here against Atlanta. They have a 52-point game total, which I believe is like the 3rd or 4th best on the slate. So the Buccaneers are 12-point favorites here. He had 32.2 DraftKings points against Dallas. Like I said, another great matchup here against Atlanta. Great stacking options in another wide receiver core that, just like the Dallas wide receiver core, I think these guys are way too cheap. You have Antonio Brown, who I believe is 6K, Mike Evans, who's 6.1K on DraftKings, and then Chris Godwin, I believe, is like mid 6K. So yeah, that makes no sense to me. I like Tom Brady. I like stacking him up here, and I really do like his wide receiver options as well. I think there's a ton of touchdown upside, and like I said, I'm shocked to see Tom Brady go out there at 44 years old and look this dominant.
Yeah, man. I actually didn't even think about talking about Tom Brady on this slate. Usually, no rushing floor running quarterbacks. I got to make sure I add a couple of quarterbacks that don't have a rushing floor and can get it done through the air like Tom Brady. But, Tom Brady's still just doing his thing. Only concern I would have about that game could be potential forecast in the weather for Sunday in that game for Tampa Bay. So I don't know how much that really plays into it early of the week, but something to keep your eye on later in the week. One quarterback I was looking at in the 6K range too was we talked about it last week, man. I think point per dollar wise made so much sense, and I think he's cheaper this week, or basically the same exact price this week as he was last week. Jalen Hurts, man, against the San Francisco 49ers. One that I don't know if it's an overreaction or an underreaction, but that 49ers defense was getting absolutely roasted by Jared Goff in garbage time last week. And I think Jalen Hurts could definitely get the job done here. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3.5-point underdogs this week. He definitely, I think, has the safest rushing floor on the slate behind Kyler Murray. No Lamar Jackson on this slate again. So I feel like Jalen Hurts is the second coming of Lamar Jackson. And, man, that boy looked very, very, very sharp last week. And it's pretty easy to hit the pass-catching options. I really like Jalen Hurts a lot. I don't think people are going to want to go there.
Yeah, Hurts looked really good. And yeah, like you mentioned, the 49ers defense looked really bad. Another guy that's interesting to me, and he's really cheap. So last week, what was his price tag? I think it was like around the same. Joe Burrow is 5,800. So what I like about Joe Burrow is typically he's throwing the ball a ton. I think he averaged like nearly 50 passing attempts last year. Last week, he only threw the ball 27 times, which is very weird. And we saw T. Higgins do very, very well. Jamar Chase, the rookie, I think he scored like around 20 DraftKings points. I think I might go back to Joe Burrow in this Bengals offense just based off the fact that they're, again, priced way too cheap. Joe Burrow, 5,800. Jamar Chase is way too cheap. I believe he's like 5,000. And then T. Higgins, again, is just way too cheap. So, although it does concern me a little bit that they only threw the ball 27 times, I think it was more so because they were up, for a lot of part of that game. And I think they are going to be underdogs in this game, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of like Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense here.
I definitely don't blame you. When you're doing lineup construction early in the week, if you're looking to pay up for team jamming in running backs, I feel like Joe Burrow is the preferred cheap quarterback option on DraftKings for cash games, and I think he has GPP upside. Man, I think we'll talk about a couple more of his pass catching options later on in the show because I think even though the Rams look good on Sunday night, man, that just might be a great matchup, dude. The Bears look bad. Like the Cooper Kupp touchdown, I don't remember anybody being within the 30-mile radius. And the same exact thing for Van Jefferson. They look like identical touchdowns. And let that be Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You might be $1 million richer after Sunday.
Yep, agreed. And as far as that, like that's pretty much all that sticks out to me for quarterback. I really just see myself playing a ton of Dak Prescott, playing a ton of Herbert, stacking them up, running it back in the same game, maybe going up and getting Murray as well. But yeah, that game, the Dallas game, is something I'm really going to focus on. Can't really see myself going anywhere else down here. I mean, not many sticks out. Mac Jones got priced up a little bit. Matt Ryan, he looked so bad last week. He's sitting at 5,600. The matchup's there. I just don't know if I can go back to Matt Ryan after I couldn't believe how bad he looked.
I didn't think he was going to look that bad. That was bad. Like words can't even. He got me stuttering from how bad he looked last week. Because I personally wasn't on him for daily fantasy, but for one of my home dynasty league teams, he's actually like my main quarterback. And man, 3 points, man, in a fantasy league, dude. What were you, man? That's the story for another day, though. Shouts to our first sponsor of the night, the Lawnmower 4.0. Make sure you use that promo code Pub Sports when you're in the checkout to get that free shipping at Manscaped. Oh, man, that drink went down the wrong way. Give me a second here.
You're good.
I did not feel good. I'm about to run another commercial.
Stand him!
on, big game, Preston. Come on.
I can't breathe.
Pub Sports Radio. Come find us in Southtown 101. Subscribe on YouTube and all platforms where podcasts are found.
All right, we're good now. We are back. Me and Brady talking about Week 2 DFS. Shouts to all the people that are joining us in the chat tonight. Preston Ekdahl says Josh Allen is dead to me. Jacksonville Zoe, man. What's up with your Jacksonville Jaguars? I don't want to hear anything else. So Terlansky says top quarterbacks are going to be Herbert and Dak. Definitely do agree with you. I would pull up your other comments, but we might have to pull them up as we bring up the player pool. Shouts to Sharpie. I'm riding with Sharpie tonight. If you're looking for some degenerate action, Suarez, Philadelphia pitcher, over 5.5 strikeouts at -120. I am tailing my man Sharpie on the Dirty K prop of the day. Usually doesn't do it as much as he used to. Shouts to the #1 Minnesota Viking fan that I know, diehard MMA podcast. Clint, man, I'm so mad we didn't get that arm triangle last night on the Contender Series. We tried to go dog chasing, and Clint got me in the car, man. Clint got me in the car for that one. I thought we were going to ride to the window, man. And shouts to Terlansky again. He says, I think the key this week is don't overthink it. A lot of information will come in, but stacking the Chargers and Cowboys would definitely remain the optimal strategy. Terlansky, I couldn't agree with you anymore when you say don't overthink it. I think I overthought it last week in GPPs, and that's definitely something I won't make mistake of again. Zoe says Billy, new coaching staff, takes some time. Actually, Lawrence did okay in fantasy last week. I will say Lawrence was one of the few bright spots on that offense. I think Urban Meyer, though, Zoe, he might be one to call that USC job because he's a bad NFL coach. I think that's really what it really comes down to. Because how do you not use James? If you saw James Robinson or Carlos Hyde, who would you use? Not Carlos Hyde, dude. I don't know, man. He must be off the really good week because he's been doing some real stupid stuff out there. But let's go over to the running back position, though. At the top is Christian McCaffrey, $9,900, and then a $400 price bump down in Fanduel at $10,000. I do like Christian McCaffrey. One thing that I'm going to have to make a decision on this week is McCaffrey or Kamara. Brady, who do you like in this high range?
The high range is going to be McCaffrey for me. Well, both McCaffrey and Kamara are two guys that I'm definitely looking at. It was really weird last week. I mean, it seemed like McCaffrey had his floor game, and he was still the second highest score on the entire slate, I believe, behind Joe Mixon by like less than a point. Scored 27.7 DraftKings points. And I mean, it's hard not to go back to McCaffrey on any given week. And, it's not the best matchup against the Saints, but it doesn't matter who McCaffrey's going to play. He's going to get a ton of targets. He's going to get a ton of receptions. He had 9 receptions last week. He's going to have 30+ touch upside on any given week. So yeah, McCaffrey, if I had to pick between McCaffrey or Kamara, I know there's a 1.1K difference, but I'll probably go McCaffrey for me because he has that elite ceiling. And I don't think we saw the best of Christian McCaffrey last week, and he still did very good. So, in terms of season long, I had McCaffrey, and that felt really good. And it feels even better knowing that I think he's going to, have an even better game this week and the games going forward.
To be honest with you, I'm glad you have the same sentiments because I think Christian McCaffrey last week had a bad real life game, and then you check the fantasy box score. My man had 100 receiving yards. Like if he even falls into the touchdown in the end zone, man, he ends up breaking that slate. And maybe some people will go to Kamara more, and we get an ownership discount on Christian McCaffrey because we're getting a price tag discount this week. But also in that high range that I really like that I was eyeing up, Nick Chubb. $7,800 and $8,400. It's very rare that I play running backs that miss that one box of the receiving yards, but I think Nick Chubb might do what we thought James Robinson was going to do last week against the Houston Texans defense. They're 16-point favorites. One thing that you want to do is attack your running backs that are going to be home favorites like Nick Chubb will be this week. I think regardless of the game script, I feel like Nick Chubb should be able to get 80 rushing yards and a touchdown as a safe floor and be along his way. Brady, is there anybody that you like Nick Chubb or anybody else in this mid-range?
Yeah, Chubb is actually going to be my favorite player, everything factored in, price and all that, out of anybody on the slate in terms of running back. I'm not really a big Chubb guy in general, just based off the fact that he's not going to get a lot of reception upside. I believe he had, I think 2 receptions last week, though, which is awesome. But this is like a handmade matchup for Chubb to go out here and just go off. Going against the Houston Texans run defense, who is terrible. The Browns are 12.5-point favorites, which means they're going to be up. They're going to be running the ball nonstop. You got to imagine they're going to come in here with a game plan of just pounding the ball down the throats of the Houston Texans. And, it's even a solid point total, 47.5, and just an elite matchup, 20-plus touch upside. I think he had 15 rushing attempts last week, 12 receptions. I thought they really should have ran the ball more last week against the Chiefs, but, this is a game where I expect them to run the ball a ton. I expect them to be out front, and Chubb's very, very good. Scored 23.1 DraftKings points last week, and, I think he's going to absolutely go off, and I love the price point.
Yeah, definitely will agree with you on that one. Is there anybody else in the mid-range that you want to get into? Because I feel like the high range is pretty easy. Cut and clear. CMC, Kamara, Chubb. Trelansky does bring up a couple good points, but I don't know, man. I feel like Chubb, there's like 3 games a year that Chubb has where he just like looks like the second coming of Derrick Henry. And I think this is the one, man. If you played James Robinson last week, you know how good that matchup was supposed to be. And now we actually get a competent coach that likes to run the football. No Odell Beckham out there, so that may even increase and keep Nick Chubb's receiving game floor out there, because he caught a couple passes last week. Yep. We've been arguing all year and every year that Nick Chubb doesn't catch enough passes, and maybe the coach finally heard us, and the fantasy teams definitely reflected in it. In the mid range, me personally, I think one dude that might burn me when I go play him in my lineups, but I'm going to have to play him just because it makes sense. $7,300 for Austin Eckler this week. One thing that has me concerned about Austin Eckler was that he wasn't really targeted in that game last week, but it was also the Washington football team, which is one of the worst matchups on the board for every team this year. That rush defense is really elite. I feel like Eckler should be able to smash against the Dallas Cowboys. I thought it was a good matchup last week on the Thursday night football game, but I don't know what's up with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. They just don't like playing football, because Ronald Jones fumbled the ball, and then Leonard Fournette continues on the next drive and drops a 2-yard wide open catch, and it lands right into the other hand of the team. And Bruce Arians said Bruce is going to pass the ball for the rest of the game here on out. So Austin Eckler this week, $7,300. It's a great matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. I think that he should be able to get inside the end zone. I'm going to really try to chase the touchdowns this week. There's a lot of high point totals. Anybody else in the mid-range you're looking at?
Yeah, I really like Eckler as well. Somebody in the 6K range that really does stick out to me. First of all, this 6K range is stacked with guys that really intrigue me. So at 6,100, you have Chris Carson. Also at 6,100, you have David Montgomery. At 6,200, you have Zeke Elliott. And then at 6,300, you have Najee Harris. So all 4 of those, I don't know if it's the same for you, but all 4 of those really do stick out to me in terms of being really cheap value running backs and have some really solid upside. But if I had to pick between out of the 4, I kind of like Najee Harris going against the Raiders, 47-point game total, where Pittsburgh's going to be 5.5-point favorites. I do like that. They're going to be out ahead, projected to be out ahead, which means more running for Harris. And Harris definitely did drop the ball, and I wasn't on him last week personally, but I know a lot of people that were, and they definitely got burned by him. 5.9 DraftKings points last week. And something to mention for Harris is he was the only running back to get a touch last week, and I believe he's the only running back to get a snap. He played 100% of snaps last week. So I'm going right back to Harris, 6,300. Like I said, he screwed probably a lot of people that played him last week over, and just seems way too cheap. I mean, if you're telling me Harris is going to come out here, he's going to get 100% of the snaps, I'm gonna play him. I like the matchup. I like the price. I like the game script as well. So yeah, give me Harris at 6,300.
I think Najee Harris, low key, might be the running back that I have the most ownership on this week, depending on how lineup construction works out. But like when it comes to sentiments, pre-flop, Harris being one of the only running backs in the league to see 100% of the snaps. People played him in cash games last week in GPPs, and he absolutely burned some people. I don't think maybe people go back to the well. Maybe some people are scared off, but 6.5-point home favorites this week. I think Najee Harris absolutely eats. I couldn't agree any more on that take. One dude that I was also looking at was Chris Carson as well, because I don't know how much Russell Wilson I want to get inside my lineups. I think the 6K range in general this week has a lot of value for GPPs because we're going to have to pay up for wide receiver this week in the top range or tight end, depending on how you like to construct your lineups. So that 6K range, I wouldn't even mind picking like a Chlorella of 3 of them. One guy I was also looking at that was kind of underrated was David Montgomery, $6,100. David Montgomery really picked up where he left off at the end of last season. He looked pretty good out there. I know Cordell Patterson was out there for a little bit, but I think David Montgomery gets a good matchup this week against Cincinnati Bengals, and I don't think that team really wants to have Andy Dalton throw the ball 30 times a game, so they're going to have to definitely lean to the run game. David Montgomery, $6,100. I think he's going to go overlooked on the slate, and $7,500 on Fanduel. Better DraftKings play than Fanduel play. One dude I was looking at, though, it's either going to be Najee Harris or Eli Mitchell for me. $5,000 for Eli Mitchell. He's the cover boy for the video today. I make the thumbnail, so I ended up picking Eli Mitchell. I was going to do Najee Harris, but if you look up any week 2 DFS video, Najee Harris is going to be the cover boy. So we switched it up this week with Raheem Mostert being out for the season. That really pops up a guy like Elijah Mitchell, named as Eli Mitchell in the Daily Fantasy community, I guess, because DraftKings put Eli Mitchell. I couldn't even find his name when the pricing first came out because I didn't know what they put his name as. But he logged in 19 rushes for 104 yards and a touchdown last week. Really strong performance once Raheem Mostert went out. A lot of people like Trey Sermon coming into the season, but Shanahan said Eli Mitchell and JaMychal Hasty won the starting job. And if you had to say Hasty or Mitchell to play for fantasy, I'm picking Mitchell every time. $5,000 is a really cheap price tag considering the volume that he should get this week. Only concern would be just in that offense, they like to use a lot of different running backs. So could be a slippery slope, but $5,000 make a lot of things work. Thoughts on Eli Mitchell this week? I know he's a popular waiver wire ad.
Yeah, I tried to get him, but somebody outbidded me, so I don't have Eli Mitchell on my team. But yeah, Mitchell's definitely somebody to look at. And yeah, I was with a lot of other people thinking that Sermon might be the guy behind Mostert, but no, it's Eli Mitchell, which is very interesting. I'm not so sure it's going to be like that, throughout the season. But, as of now, I do think Mitchell is going to be that guy. 5,000, really cheap. You brought up that, the 49ers do tend to, mix in a lot of other running backs. And sometimes it really just does not matter. I mean, last week I was very high not very high on Mostert, but somebody that I was considering in some lineups because, he has that big play upside. And, 49ers are going to run the ball a ton. I think they have a great offensive line as well. Eli Mitchell, he had 0 targets, 0 receptions. But yeah, he looked phenomenal last week. 5K. I do like Mitchell. One guy I did want to throw out to you, and just it's so interesting. This is a very interesting play, right? Like Zeke Elliott. It just seems like he's way too cheap. The matchup's there, 6,200, 55-point game total, highest total on the slate. He scored 5.9 DraftKings points last week, the same as Harris. And I just want to hear your thoughts on Elliott. Why aren't we playing Elliott at this price? It just seems way too cheap, considering the game, considering the matchup. But he looked so bad last week.
I was actually talking to Big Show about this last night or early this morning because I always talk to him about my player pool when I add all my people in the player pool. And I was just like, man, I think I'm going to have more Ezekiel Elliott than I really am liking usually. He might be sub 10% owned, dude. And he's $6,200, $7,500 on FanDuel. I think Ezekiel Elliott, perfect. He is the ideal GPP play. Nobody's going to want to play him because he burned everybody on Thursday and in real life fantasy. I feel like Ezekiel Elliott is the, in golf sometimes when like a chalky golfer ends up busting and not making a cut and nobody wants to play him the next week and then they end up top 5 and then busting open the slate. I think that's what Ezekiel Elliott's going to do for the PGA grinders out there in the world. I feel like you go back to the well with Ezekiel Elliott. You play Justin Herbert as the quarterback, Keenan Allen as the wide receiver, and that's just the perfect run back option. I'm with you all day. I don't want to tell too many people and drive up the ownership.
Yeah, like something that we have to really mention, like Zeke and the Dallas Cowboys, they literally went against one of, if not the best run defense last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Like, I don't think a lot of people are taking that into consideration. This is a much better matchup. And again, just way too cheap. So yeah, I'm with you. I like Zeke, hoping he's going to be low owned. We'll definitely see throughout the week.
Yeah, I actually really like the running back pool this week than I did last week. Usually, the first week of the season is usually the best running back pool just due to point per dollar price tags. But just I feel like DraftKings didn't really move the prices too much. They kind of moved people's prices down this week. I think it's going to be. I think the player pool this week is a little bit. We got to make a little bit more decisions because there's so many good options in many different spots. But before we head over to the wide receiver, shouts to Jeff Slaughter, sponsor of the video, and the head man over here at Pub Sports Radio. If you're ever in the San Antonio area, make sure you visit Southtown 101. I'm back here with my co-host, Brady, a.k.a. DFS by the Numbers. We're going over the wide receiver position for Week 2 Daily Fantasy, DraftKings, and Fanduel. Looking at the wide receiver position, Brady, who is your favorite man at the top? There's a lot of good wide receiver options this week. You might want to allocate some salary to the top end.
Yeah, there's a ton that really stick out. Obviously, Hopkins sticks out any given week. Diggs sticks out any given week. Metcalf sticks out this week. A guy that I do want to touch on a little bit, though, is going to be Calvin Ridley, a guy that screwed a lot of people over last week, including me. I was very high on Calvin Ridley. I thought he'd have a much better game. Probably going to go right back to him here. He looked really good, like in the first, I think it was like the very first drive. He had a couple catches, and then after that, he didn't really do much. But in this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, like I said, their run defense is very good. I don't think their pass defense is as good at all, and I think that really can definitely have some success. It is a 52-point game total, one of the best on the slate, where the Falcons are actually 12-point underdogs. So you got to expect they're going to be trailing. They're going to be passing a lot. The only concern is, my goodness, did the Falcons look horrible? But I do expect Ridley to definitely bounce back. I expect the Falcons offense in general to bounce back after a horrible performance last week. And, I like Ridley this week, and I'll go back to Pitts as well. We'll talk about him. But, I think Ridley's definitely somebody to consider. On top of that, Stephon Diggs, $7,700, $200 more. Again, he had a tough matchup last week, right? He's going to have another tough matchup here against Miami. He have a 47.5-point game total. And he's somebody that is pretty much matchup proof, right? You never have to worry about the matchup of Stephon Diggs. Had 15.9 DraftKings points last week. Had 14 targets, 9 receptions. And I do like Diggs as well. So my top two probably are going to be Ridley. I really do expect, I don't know the ownership on top of my head, but I think Ridley's going to be very high or very low owned. And then Stephon Diggs as well up there in the top range.
Yeah, I love how you talked about Calvin Ridley. I tried to hold off on my Calvin Ridley love last week because I knew the Eagles were going to play that cover too. But I think this is a great time to go back. A lot of people got burnt by Ridley last week. And you know me, I already said I like Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, I would say better FanDuel play than DraftKings play. He is not priced as the second highest wide receiver on the slate on FanDuel. So any FanDuel grinders out there, make sure you get yourself some Stephon Diggs. Other wide receivers I like in this top range will probably be the Seattle guys. But let's get more into this mid-range because the top range, man, we're not going to tell you anything that you haven't already heard or know or probably already thought of yourself. So let's go into the 6K range. 6K range for me, I'm going to start off with Amari Cooper, $6,800. Way too cheap on DraftKings this week. Amari Cooper looked really good, secured 13 out of 16 targets last week for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Buccaneers last week. I know some people are going to be scared of Derwin James, but I do love me some Amari Cooper this week at $6,800. I think there's a bigger price difference between Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on FanDuel. I like CeeDee Lamb on FanDuel, and I like Amari Cooper on DraftKings. Those would be the difference between those two for me.
Yep. Cooper, Lamb, and Wilson are all three guys I'm going to have a lot of interest in. CeeDee Lamb is going to be, I believe, $400 cheaper, $6,400. Had 15 targets last week, 7 receptions. He had a 26.4 DraftKings points in the last game. And I remember there were like a few times where, either Dak missed Lamb or, Lamb even dropped the ball at points. So he could have had an even bigger game. Again, this is a game I really want to target. So, yeah, you mentioned it. Cooper, Lamb, and Wilson are three guys that I definitely have some interest in. On the flip side, didn't touch on him, but Keenan Allen is somebody. This is probably my favorite wide receiver play for the week. It's a 55-point game total going against a Dallas defense that is terrible, to say the least. Allen's going to be, he's always, going to have a safe floor, gets a ton of targets every week, gets a ton of receptions. But now you're factoring in that this is the highest total on the slate. You're factoring in that, a Dallas defense that is terrible. I think Keenan Allen is, like I said, my favorite play on the slate. I think he's very safe, and I think he has a lot of upside as well.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you on that one. I think Keenan Allen is going to be the best volume wide receiver on this slate this week. Dallas's secondary is still really bad. One person I was looking at for point per dollar wise that really didn't make too much sense why his price tag didn't go up too much was Cooper Kupp, LA Rams wide receiver. Playing against the Indianapolis Colts, we saw what the Colts were doing last week, man. They can't guard anybody, and Cooper Kupp looked pretty good with Matthew Stafford last week. Caught 7 balls off of 10 targets, 108 yards and a touchdown last week. I think Cooper Kupp's price tag's a little bit too cheap for cash games.
Yeah, Stafford and the Rams looked really good.
Wouldn't want to mind. No, I said if you want to go in GPPs with Cooper Kupp, I wouldn't mind that either.
Okay, my bad. You cut out. Yep, I do like Kupp, and yeah, the Rams looked really good. Like I said, something I did want to touch on was these Tampa Bay wide receivers. You have Mike Evans, who is 6,100, Antonio Brown 6,000, and then you have Godwin, who is 6,600. And yeah, I like all three of them as well. I think they're all three way too cheap going against Atlanta. Terrible passing defense, 52-point game total. The only concern is I do think there's a potential that, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers do get up early and they do start to run the ball. But, I think they're all three in a good spot there. If you had to pick between the one, Brown, Godwin, or Evans, who are you preferring there?
Me, I'm a kind of greasier of a person. I don't like the norm. And you know what they say, call God, call AB. I'm a big Antonio Brown guy, big Hollywood Brown fan too as well. I'm an Antonio Brown truther, dude. I got to pick Antonio Brown. My man was looking sharp out here, looking like he just came out of a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey on Thursday night in that opening game. And, of course, he went straight to Instagram and let everybody know it too. I kind of like those cockier players in football sometimes. I'm not a fan of them in real life, but in fantasy, I'm all for it. And I think Brady likes Antonio Brown too as well. It felt like him and Godwin were his favorite targets, but maybe that will make Mike Evans a sneaker play in GPPs.
Yeah, I was thinking Mike Evans is probably going to be the lower owned out of the three there. And then T. Higgins, 5,400, and then Jamar Chase, 5,000. Very cheap, just like last week. I mean, I was very high on Higgins last week. I even threw some Chase in there as well. And we saw that Chase, I mean, he had a bad preseason, but we can't always look into the preseason all that much. And we saw that Chase went out there and had a really good game. 23.9 DraftKings points, got a touchdown, and he's at 5,000. Like, this price makes 0 sense to me. Going against a Chicago defense that I'm not scared of at all. So, yeah, Jamar Chase, way too cheap, 5K. And then even T. Higgins still, again, way too cheap, 5,400.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with you. I feel like Jamar Chase should absolutely go off in this spot. I don't get why they haven't really raised his price tag too much. Other guys I was looking at below 5K, the number one play I feel like below 5K this week is going to be Cole Beasley at $4,600. I don't know why he was targeted so much last week, but he didn't catch a touchdown. I feel like Cole Beasley should get a really good game. Under 5K, $4,600. DraftKings is a PPR type league format. So Cole Beasley fits that type of format better than half a point PPR. So I think better DraftKings play than Fanduel play. And then your boy Rondale Moore at 4,000 flat. Him and Christian Kirk both saw the same amount of targets, but Christian Kirk caught the 2 touchdowns. So everybody's going to want to play Christian Kirk this week. But I think Rondale Moore looked really good. I feel like that's really it, the wide receiver position. We'll save some more wide receivers for Friday's show. We don't want to go over the whole entire player pool at wide receiver.
Yep, sounds good.
Let's go over to the tight end position. Tight end position is I think this is a pretty short tight end slate. Like, there's not a lot of people in my player pool for tight end this week. At the top, I know Darren Waller snapped on Monday Night Football, but I'm a little bit more interested in George Kittle at a price tag discount. I feel like this is a good matchup for him against Philadelphia. He should be the number one target for them this week. And there's no Travis Kelce on this slate. On Fanduel, I was actually shocked that Rob Gronkowski was the third highest priced tight end of the slate. They're definitely drinking the Gronk juice. Brady, who else are you liking at tight end this week?
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think the price here on Kittle is really disrespectful. Kittle, I do like if I was going to go up and pay for a tight end. Even Pitts draws my interest. Again, he screwed a lot of people over last week, including me. Like, I had Pitts in just about every single lineup, and he still had 8 targets. Matt Ryan sucked, though, and he couldn't get it to him all that much. But yeah, 7.1 DraftKings points last week. I think I'm going to go right back to Pitts. I like the matchup against Tampa Bay, who is not great against the tight end. I like the game in a 52-point game total, and probably going to be very low owned compared to last week. So Pitts is somebody I have my eye on. And then the only other two I'm looking at, so Noah Fant for Denver going against Jacksonville. I love the matchup. He had 12.2 DraftKings points last week. I believe he had like 8 targets as well. Fant, 4,200, and then Higbee for the Rams, 4,100. If I was to pay down at tight end, I'm kind of looking at those two.
Yeah, dude, I agree with you 1,000%. Noah Fant is one of my favorite tight end plays of the week. When you start talking about going down off of George Kittle, Jerry Jeudy got hurt last week in the New York Giants game. He's out for the season, so that even raises the target share for a guy like Noah Fant. We'll talk about some of the other Denver wide receivers on Friday's show when we start talking about the cheap range for GPPs. Another guy I was looking at that was pretty cheap was $3,700. Cole Kmet, Chicago Bears tight end. He was used a lot last week, man. He was kind of like their second receiver behind Allen Robinson, but Allen Robinson was on Ramsey Island. I do like the matchup for him against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think he could definitely pay off his price tag very easily. $3,700 will fit really any lineup you want this week.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on Jared Cook for the Chargers? He had 8 targets last week, 5 receptions, 10.6 DraftKings points, going against Dallas, who could not cover anybody, let alone the tight end. 55-point game total. I'm kind of interested in Jared Cook at that price tag.
There's a stupid thing that I do in fantasy. I have a shit list, and man, Mark Ingram would definitely be number 1 on that list. And he went off last week. And then number 2 on that list, I am not a fan of Jared Cook, but for this week, I think I have to play him. And for all the times that I've ever shitted on Jared Cook, this will be the week that he puts up the egg for me. But, Jared Cook is going to have to go in the stacks with Dak Prescott or Justin Herbert, however you want to slice it and dice it. Man, I might even just say F Jared Cook and play Dalton Schultz or something like that. That's how much I don't like Jared Cook, but he makes all the sense this week. Mike Williams is a little bit too expensive for me on DraftKings this week, $6,100. There's some guys that I like in the 5K range a little bit more than Mike Williams, and he's $5,600 on FanDuel, so better FanDuel play than DraftKings play. So that kind of makes me want to play Jared Cook more on DraftKings than FanDuel. But anything at defense that you're looking at? Because I feel like that's the tight ends really quick. Defense for me, I was looking up at the top. I think I'm going to have the money to pay up for defense this week. I've kind of like the Los Angeles Rams. They were $4,500, $4,700. One running back that we didn't talk about in the running back pool was Darrell Henderson. He was one of the running backs that played majority of the snaps last week too. So I do like me some Darrell Henderson correlated with the Los Angeles Rams defense. Brady, how about you?
For me, if I was to pay up, I'm dying over here. If me,
that happened to me too. I don't know why.
I don't know what's going on. Okay, the Browns defense, 3,500. Are they at home? Browns at home?
Yeah, the Browns are at home against the Texans.
Even better. Browns are at home. They're 12.5-point favorites going against a horrible Texans team. I know they look good against the Jags, but the Jags are even worse. I like the Browns defense if I was paying up. That was to pay down. Jets against the Patriots, 2,200. Eagles against the 49ers, 2,400. But yeah, if I definitely have the salary, I'll probably go with the Browns.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't blame you. One cheap defense that I think that I'm going to play if I need it for cash games is the Cincinnati Bengals defense, man. $2,900 against Andy Dalton's turnover prone ass. I'm going to definitely get me some Bengals defense in there at $2,900. Other defenses I was looking at was the Buffalo Bills. I don't know why the Buffalo Bills always pop up in my optimizer for defenses, but I guess it's because of Josh Allen. Man, maybe Tua will throw a pick. I don't know. I'm going to play the Bills defense. A little bit too cheap for me. There's really not a lot of good cheap defenses like there were last week.
No, not at all. I remember how I had a bunch of Bengals defense. They did okay. I played some Falcons as well. They did terrible. But yeah, the Bengals worked out. But yeah, I'm with you. There's not many cheap defenses. So it might be a good week too.
Defense was in the millie last week. Am I right?
Who was it?
The Cardinals defense, because they had the touchdown and they were like one of the cheap ones.
Yep.
Yeah, I always feel like I got to start thinking about defense a little bit more, because that might be like the difference between you making $1 million and only a couple thousand.
100%. I mean, that's probably like the last thing I think about. But yeah, I'm sure we'll find out some good options throughout the week. But yeah, right now that's sticking out. Only thing for me up top is Browns. If I had to pay down, I guess I'll go with like the Eagles, and then there was one other one I was thinking about. What was the other one? The Jets against the Patriots.
I don't know. The Jets against the Patriots. The Jets just might be bad. Like, yeah, I think the Patriots, from a betting perspective, I know there's a Daily Fantasy video. I think the Patriots are a good bet this week against the Miami. I mean, against Miami last week, they were pretty popular, but I think this week against the Jets, I feel like Belichick has really good splits against the New York Jets, but it could be skewed. I think Mac Jones is definitely due for a win. I feel like he's a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. But Brady, what else do you have going on this week? I know you're a busy man in the community, one of the trendsetters in the community when it comes to the MMA community as well. What do you have going on this week?
Yeah, a lot going on, especially considering we have 15 fights for UFC. But my prediction video is out. My DraftKings video is out for MMA. I just got my core plays video out for NFL. Saturday, I'll be getting out my full player pool video for NFL. I'll be back with you on Friday as well. So yeah, lots going on. Live stream for MMA Friday and Saturday. Busy week, but I love it. Looking forward to this week for NFL and UFC's back. So that's awesome as well.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you. Pretty crazy fight week card. As soon as this video goes done, I'm going to have to keep on continuing the tape study because, man, 15 fights and then a 13-fight Bellator card. It's like we're back to reality, man. COVID had us down for a little bit. A year later, man, we got 30 fights and 30 NFL games and college football games. It's a pretty crazy week. On Pub Sports Radio tonight, we have the horse racing stream with Razor Sharp Picks tonight. And then Friday, we're going to bring on Brady's boy, Chris Pinnell, and he's going to help us go through some stacks and some last-minute options and injury news. That's really it for the video. Make sure you follow me on Twitter over at Getting Bills. Have a great, safe, blessed evening, and we'll be back tomorrow early in the morning for the Thursday Night Football Showdown slate preview.
Good stream. I started choking on my water. Oh, we're still going?